If there's one wrestler who WWE failed to recreate, it's Eddie Guerrero. His death left a huge dent on the Latino market, and this is still felt to this very day. Many men such as Sin Cara and Alberto Del Rio were there to fill the void, but to no avail. Matter of fact, neither man came close. Even in Del Rio's case, he was pushed harder than a kid on a training wheels bike, but it didn't work. Outside of this Latino, he is still constantly mentioned at least once a day. I go on Twitter, you hear about Eddie. Whether it be WCW era with the straps or Indie Eddie from 2002, there's always a mention of him. His legacy will last until the end of time, and that's no exaggeration. I mean, there was this one time on Twitter where this guy was clowned hard for talking bad about Guerrero's career, and it got to the point where they were punching a dead body. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to evaluate Latino Heat's career and rate him from 1 to 10. We look at charisma, mic skills, and of course in-ring skills, and then we just rank. It's as simple as that. I've done this before with Bret Hart and RVD, but unlike the RVD video, I want to make a quick career overview because I feel like it made sense. It's not going to be as long as the Bret Hart one. It's just a little quick one, and then we'll go to ranking him. Okay. Eddie, throughout his life, has never been a stranger to wrestling. Why? Because he was born into a wrestling family. His father, Gory, had an illustrious career and raised 4 future wrestlers: Hector, Mondo, Chavo, and Eddie himself. He was around wrestling the entire time and at a very young age was trained. His brothers were very stiff with him, despite being around 8, but it allowed Eddie to toughen up. He was a collegiate wrestler and on the side was professional wrestling trained. Since it ran in the family, Latino Heat followed in their footsteps and in 1986 made his official debut with CMLL as the original Mascara Magica. Eddie excelled and honed his craft down in Mexico along with AAA and New Japan Pro Wrestling. His stint as Mascara Magica didn't go on forever, and instead of losing the mask in a match, Guerrero unmasked himself on November 27, 1992. Very unusual because wager matches are often some of the biggest matches in Mexico. With that said, Guerrero showed some of his backstabbing nature, turning on the son of El Santo, better known as El Hijo del Santo, and this was the beginning of something. They started teaming up with our Bar as Los Gringos Locos, and these two, especially Bar in particular, had heat radiating from them. Eddie credits Bar as somebody who taught him a lot during this time period. The Gringos Locos turned into a faction, including the likes of Conan and Black Cat. Their most famous match was, of course, the Mask vs. Hair match at When Worlds Collide on November 6, 1994. Eddie and Art, the pair of terror against El Hijo del Santo and Octagon. This is one of the biggest highlights from Eddie's career, always, when you look at his early days. And this wasn't exactly his early days, but compared to what he would accomplish, this was one of his most famous matches. The heels lost, but their stock was never higher than here. Despite Art's past, there was a place for them in ECW as Paul Heyman sought them following their impressive character work in Mexico. But he died only a few weeks after the When Worlds Collide event. He's always been a what if. Eddie, of course, struggled in light of his friend's death and said that he cried for 3 months straight. Died in New Japan, Eddie wrestled as Black Tiger, where he excelled and continued honing his craft. Guerrero finally started doing something in the US as Paul Heyman brought him to Extreme Championship Wrestling. He made a huge mark in his very short time down in the East Coast, capturing the World Television Championship. He also had one of, if not the greatest matches in the promotion with Dean Malenko. Because of his talented performances in New Japan and ECW, along with Mexico, WCW came calling. The ball was already rolling, but you'd see a snowball effect with Eddie from here on. He was one of the only young guys pushed by WCW. Back then, it was Eddie, Chris Benoit, Alex Wright, and a couple of others. Obviously, the main event scene was dominated by the Giant, Hulk Hogan, and others, but Guerrero had a nice little spot in the mid-card. He feuded with the likes of Ric Flair and DDP before finally capturing championship gold, that being the US title. He was amongst the most notable wrestlers as well in the Cruiserweight division, and was lighting up the ring in some technically sound, exciting, high-flying matchups. Guerrero was great in the ring, tremendous, but there he was somewhat pigeonholed. For one, he didn't have the distinguishable character and the mic skills that everyone knew yet. At one point, Eddie Guerrero even agreed with the vanilla midget statement that I believe Kevin Nash called them. That sentiment would of course disappear because after turning heel in 1997, Eddie Guerrero kicked it up a notch. He'd come out looking like he's got better plans, showed more aggression, and was more methodical in his approach. I should say, though, that he could switch it up at a moment's notice. He changed his look, started speaking more often, and you could see some of that fire brewing. Just a little there. He got to lead a faction by the name of the LWO for a few months, but then his life almost took a turn for the worse as Guerrero ended up crashing into a tree to close out 1998. His life was on the line, but nonetheless, Guerrero made a comeback and became an ally to Rey Mysterio Jr. instead of a rival. Soon enough, he was a part of the Filthy Animals, and they caused mischief in WCW, and at one point even buried Ric Flair. For Guerrero, he realized that there was a ceiling to his talents, and decided that with his good buddies, that it's time to go to the WWF. This is where Eddie went from one level to another, of course. That charisma and mic skills were starting to emerge. He was already growing in WCW, but once he was involved in the China storyline, he shined the brightest. He was hilarious, entertaining in all kinds of ways, and he even showed that temper he's known for. Unfortunately, his problems were getting the best of him, despite his success. He was a former IC champion and a 2-time European champion. Even with his talents, the WWF realized it's best if they go their separate ways. At the time, Guerrero had an epiphany of sorts. He thought to himself, I've got a huge problem, and he had to change for himself, his career, and his family, and that's what he did. Guerrero went on a comeback tour competing in New Japan, the Indies, and even featured in ROH. WWE came calling, and after WrestleMania 18, he was back. This return run, though, turned into the most iconic of Guerrero's career. He just came out with so much fire, and in a way, he had a chip on his shoulder. Eddie in 2002 did not take a moment to be complacent at all. You can see it in his promos and matches, even the way he walked to the ring. He was going at 100%. Soon enough, when he turned face, the fans caught on, and never before did he have that much support. Why did he have this support, though? Because it was a complete package at this point. To understand how over Eddie was, he was originally a face. Then he turned, and they didn't want to boo him. Even when he chose his lowrider over Tajiri, they still cheered him. The fire and momentum continued into the fall and winter, leading to Eddie's title victory and no way out. His 18-year journey finally led to him winning the world title. Despite his issues, despite his size, and despite all the obstacles, he overcame them and exercised his demons. It was a true rich story, and if it took a wrestler 100 miles to walk to the world title, then it took Eddie 150. At this point, Latino Heat completed the game. Anything afterwards was for the 100% completion. In his final year, Guerrero once again showed just how good of a villain he was, with those deep promos about how much it meant for him to beat Ray. At times, he was petty, funny even though he was a heel, and before there was a conclusion to the Has Eddie Changed storyline, he unfortunately passed away. So that's a quick overview of Eddie Guerrero's career. I just wanted to get you caught up quickly. I didn't mention everything because this ain't a career review video. It's about how good he was. So let's start off with charisma. A big example of turning your weakness into strength. Now, it's not like I'm saying Eddie had zero charisma in his early WCW years, but often that was one of the things that worked against him. Once Eddie figured it out, this man was so damn interesting. The way he'd come onto the ring, whether it be in a lowrider or a man who was haunted over the fact that he couldn't beat Rey Mysterio, you were into it. You were cheering or booing him, and there was this electricity to him. At times there were sparks, but after 2002, he was something else, especially in 2004. There weren't that many wrestlers on his level in terms of charisma that year. They were cheering this man even after he was cheating to win matches. He's complaining about how he's got some marks on his lowrider, but they didn't give a damn. They didn't care about this heelish activity coming from him. They just loved him. And that tells you all you need to know about his charisma. Mic skills. Once again, an area perceived as a weakness for Guerrero. It turned out to be the contrary, though. Is he the GOAT talker? No. He falls in that area, in my personal opinion, similar to Shawn Michaels. Don't get it twisted, he's great. Definitely one of the best. Eddie knew how to rile up the fans easily with his in-ring talent, but he could do it with a mic as well. The thing that makes him so good is the range. He had the ability to convey his emotions in a way that not many could. One moment he cut this promo about how Rey Mysterio was responsible for the blood that was on his own face, and he'd unleash this extremely dark side and show this fury. You could see that frustration in his eyes. Rey Mysterio beating him left him awake in the hours of night. At times, he'd cut these comedic heel promos that came off as weird, such as the time he revealed that Dominic was his son, or the bedtime story. It's like Eddie refused to read the room, or actually acknowledge the room, but decided to go the opposite way, and it added to his evil character. On the other side of comedy, he was capable of selling the other wrestlers' promos to make himself look like a joke. As a babyface, he was pretty damn hilarious. Eddie was trolling heels with the I lie thing, roasting them in all kinds of ways, and another talent that he had was the ability to get the fans behind him. He's real. Everyone's seen his trials and tribulations, and once the jokes are out of the way, Eddie's always joking for the most part. Once they're out of the way, though, he's able to cut a compelling promo to show everyone that he isn't no joke. You could feel exactly what he's saying about the demons or his quest for recapturing the title that he once held or avenging his mother in light of JBL's attack. He brought it whether it be for laughs, horror, or passion. There was always something with Latino Heat Eddie Guerrero, and in my opinion, he was pretty damn good in this area. He ain't bad by no means at all. He slowly got there, though. It took him time. By the end of his career, he mastered it. Character. Throughout his 19-year career, Eddie went through a multitude of characters. A regular good guy. He'd just wrestle well and get the fans' approval. Aggressive and vicious heel. A man who felt as if the world owed him. He'd have this look of disdain on his face and would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Even if it meant destroying a family. Even if his own family looked at him differently at one point. All this stems from being unable to be his best friend. The moment he beats him, Eddie is back to being a different person. Other than that, the one thing that his heel runs all had is the deception trait. Eddie was always plotting something that was for his own benefit. Whether it be Chris Benoit being an ally of his or lying to Ray over a secret. Sometimes Guerrero was a comedy heel. He was at one point stuck to China and wanted her love, and even then he was thinking for himself. Man was multitasking, wanted some of that ass, and wanted her by his side to help him win the match. And in pursuit of getting China, he was involved in some very funny and entertaining segments that unlocked what Latino Heat was capable of. As a babyface, the comedy was increased tenfold. Guerrero always loved to make fun of others and inflict damage in a much pettier way than the usual, I'm gonna kick your ass. Sometimes he stole Kurt Angle's wheelchair and gold medals, and another time he'd steal JBL's tire and bring it out to the ring like it was a coveted championship. And at one point, he stole Ric Flair's wallet just because he got a better pick than him, and when Teddy asked for it back, he greeted him like he hadn't seen him since WrestleMania. Hell, he admits that he lies, cheats, and steals, and even then the fans love him. Then there's that side which only one man, that being JBL, pushed him to. That Fury side that everyone knows, where he turned into this relentless, almost animalistic person. Now, of course, I'm referring to babyface Eddie. You know, that's the only guy that drove him to that point. Because heel Eddie is a different story. Whether it be face or heel, Eddie had the character. So much range of emotions that he was capable of showing. Happy, frustrated, angry. He could do it all, and that's why he's one of my favorites. You know, face or heel, he could be either one of them, and that's what separates him from the others. In-ring. The biggest strength Eddie Guerrero has. Regardless of what time period we're talking about, I think we could all agree that in-ring is his strongest suit. Why is that? Similar to the promos, he had range. Because Eddie was able to wrestle around the world in the early 90s. He learned a bunch of different wrestling styles. Add to that, his father trained him at a very young age. Guerrero had that world-class technical skill. He could go out there and have a full-on wrestling match with somebody like Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. There was that speed, quickness to his approach. When he's looking for that arm or leg, he looked like a pit bull. Guerrero also had sound psychology. Everything he did was for a reason. He just had that awareness that some wrestlers lack. Guerrero sometimes was too talented for his own good, because even when, say, this match might be the best of the night, he'll be disappointed about a tiny thing that you and I don't notice. A bunch of wrestlers that came up during the 2000s cite Eddie Guerrero as an inspiration. Lucha style, he's got that down. Even in brawling situations as well. In-ring, Eddie was capable of getting the crowd to root for his opponent and vice versa. Simply put, he was world class. During his stay in WCW, many considered him to be one of the very best. In WWE, he was at an elite level, but as time went on, he deteriorated after winning the title. This had to do with Guerrero's struggles of being on top. It's not like he was bad, but he lost some of that special ability. Regardless, Guerrero was one of the very best in-ring performers of his generation. Great moveset with the helo, the back body drop, tilted world, which looked so damn good when he hit it on Ray. The gory special, the lasso from El Paso, the three amigos, and of course, the frog splash. In ring, he's undeniable. Best match. Alright, this is based on preference, of course. If we're looking at a match from bell to bell, I'd say Eddie's best was Halloween Havoc. He just told such an amazing story out there as the aggressor. He's trying to wear down Ray, keep him grounded, and he did it perfectly. It's no exaggeration, like just go watch the match if you disagree. But for this one, I'm gonna have to go with No Way Out 2004. It's just his most iconic matchup. It's the match everyone remembers. Like when you hear Eddie Guerrero, that's like one of the first three matches you hear of. It's one of the most important matches of his career. He finally reached the mountaintop and did it in an amazing way, you know? Like the match itself, it's not good, it's great. There's no exaggeration over it. And as I said, that match showed that he could make it to the top of the mountain. It's the most important match of his career, in my opinion. Best promo. Alright, Eddie throughout his career has had a bunch of promos. Some of them funny, some of them very, very, very serious where he looked extremely dark, and some of them in between. For this one, I'm gonna lean towards Addicted. During that build, that promo showed that Eddie ain't no typical challenger. He managed to switch everybody's opinion of him within a single promo. He talked about his dark side and how he's gotta do this. He's gotta win this match, and it's just iconic. Eddie was good on the mic before, you know, he improved. But following this, you start seeing more memorable promos. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Addicted. Overall, Eddie Guerrero's had quite the career. In-ring, one of the very best. Promos, very good at the time. It was excellent in every single area, and he was a complete package. Heel, face, promo, in-ring. He had it all. He even had a special entrance as well. For me, ranking him on a scale of 1 to 10, I just can't say anything lower than a 9. I can't give him an 8, in my personal opinion. Like making this video, I can't give him an 8 at all. It has to be a 9 out of 10. It ain't overrating him. It ain't anything like that. You know, he has the accolades. He won the IC title twice, the European title twice, the WWE Championship, the WCW US Championship, the Cruiserweight Championship. He has all these accolades. He had some of the very best matches over the years. Was the most charismatic wrestler of 2004 probably. And along with his in-ring skills and his memorable promos and all of that, he's just got to be a 9 out of 10 for me. 9 out of 10 means he's one of the all-time greats. If you're 8, you're amazing, you're all that. But 9, you're at an elite level in my personal opinion. So it's a 9 out of 10 for me. Alright, what'd you guys think of Eddie Guerrero's career? Please comment down below. And that's it for his video. Make sure you hit the 3 amigos on the like button or perhaps the frog splash on the subscribe button. Peace, I'm out.